Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 54 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Jeremy and Clark.
Excuse me while I drink
you.
out of my giant thing of water. Sorry.
Right. We want to promote health on this podcast, so, drinking water, doing
my
a
wife's
podcast.
out of town this weekend, so I've just, I've kind of regressed as a human being.
as we all are known to do.
Yes.
So it's Sunday night about 7:50 p.m. Eastern time. So a lot of thoughts, a lot of good. I don't want to say a lot of good football. Some good football.
Yeah, there's
this
been a
weekend.
lot of bad football this week, really.
A lot of bad football. But plenty of interesting things. We got basketball players punching each other, and lots of big discussions on who's washed and who isn't.
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to start out with the game on Thursday night because I think it became a big topic. Especially since then. First of all, Thursday night, terrible game. Denver Broncos lose to the Indianapolis Colts at 12-9 in overtime. One of the worst games I've ever watched. And I did not stay up on Thursday night to watch it. I'm just going to point that out. I watched it, which is the way I watch a lot of games now, recorded the next day. Because, you get a lot, I think you get a better perspective when you just see the nuts and bolts of it. First of all, I just want to say, man, Denver is bad. Like, the Colts are bad too, but Denver is shockingly bad. Like, Denver is like bad, but they shouldn't be bad. Like, it's surprising that they're not better than that. The Colts to me, it's really simple. Like, their offensive line stinks. So when your offensive line stinks, Matt Ryan's not going to be pretty limited when.
Yeah, and they don't really have weapons at wide receiver. So
not that it would matter. He's got no time to get them the ball.
He's got no time to get him the ball, and I wonder just if Matt Ryan's kind of washed. But
I don't think he's washed.
If he was on any team with weapons and there was bad offensive line, I don't think it would matter. But yeah,
I don't think he's washed. I just think he's got to be in a certain system in order to succeed, and you can't put him behind a bad offensive line and expect for him to play well. Like, it's just that's not who he is anymore. He's one of these guys. He needs the right situation or forget about it. He's not going to carry you to anything. And then, the next day the topic came up, well, Russell Wilson, is he not the same guy anymore? Like, what's wrong with Denver? Blah, blah, blah. And, this is my take on it. Look, I think from what I see, watching some of the clips on YouTube and stuff, what I see is that Russell Wilson is mentally just not all there. He's not making the right reads. He's not making good decisions. He's not throwing the ball where it should be thrown. He's trying to make plays happen that aren't there. And I think, I don't see anything with him physically. Obviously he's like 33 or whatever he is. So he's not going to be the same guy he was when he was 23, but he's good enough to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. From what I see, he just, it's all stuff that he's got to work out that I think it can be worked out, but Denver does so many things wrong that I don't know, it might not even matter. Like when, they're catching the ball 9 yards deep in the end zone and bringing it out. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to fix that. From what I see, I can just say Denver has talent. There's really no excuse for them to be a bad team. They have enough talent to win games, and they have more talent than Indianapolis does. There's no excuse for them losing like that and playing like that at home. Now, first of all, it's Thursday night. Okay, these Thursday night games, I think for the most part we can throw them out. I think from this point on, the first month of the NFL season is basically extension of the preseason because there is really no preseason anymore because nobody plays. So that and Thursday night games, I don't know what I'm watching. Like, what is this? Now Denver's looked like that the whole time, so it's not really like, you can't blame it on Thursday night. But yeah, I think, I've just got to think they've got too much talent for this to get better at some point. It can't. I just don't think it can continue to be this bad. And I think, honestly, most of the stuff that Russell Wilson's doing, he can look at it on tape and go, okay, I think it's fixable. I don't think Russell Wilson's washed. But I think Denver has major issues, but I'll give you the floor.
Right. That's basically, that seems like what's going on. It's just they're not scoring points, and so it just kind of becomes a thing. It's like, why, they're losing 12-9, and then how many points did they score against San Francisco? Like 9 or 10?
They won.
They lost like 11 to 10 or
10.
something. Yeah. They're just not, maybe it'll get better. I definitely think the coach may be in over his head. We'll see. Right. We'll see if it gets better, over the course of the season. But I don't know. It's not a good start, especially all the stuff that they screwed up in the first game of the season. Just with, we wanted to get to the 46-yard line and kick a 64-yard field goal. I mean, the idea that would ever be acceptable is like, that's option A was, obviously ridiculous. And I mean, watching some of the highlights from the Colts game, I mean, it wasn't like the offensive line for Denver's not necessarily their strength, but I didn't think it was that bad. There were plays that he could have made. Maybe it's fixable and they kind of turn it around. But it's been kind of a rough start so far. It's funny because I was thinking about this. We complain about the Dolphins all the time, right? And it's just funny because there's other teams that we could be a fan of, and it would be much worse. Like, we could be a fan of the Colts right now, and their owner is, weird to say the least. And they might end up firing their coach, and they keep doing this thing where they trade for a veteran quarterback, and it doesn't seem to really work out. The Broncos, they're tied to Russell Wilson now, so it better work because they're not going to get anybody else. I mean, they're already paying him like $200 million or whatever it is. So it's just there's been some really bad football, unfortunately, and that's a prime example of there's been some really bad football, particularly on Thursday night. So,
yeah, it's so we'll see how it goes, but they're just, it's not good. And it's the sad part is like Russell Wilson got traded to them and then was like immediately working with the we got some fans in the background making some noise.
Sorry, I apologize, guys.
They were. I don't remember what my train of thought was there. The dog screwed me up.
The sad part was the sad part with the Broncos.
Oh yeah. So they traded for Russell Wilson, and then he was working with the receivers in the offseason.
Yeah,
like they were getting extra practice time in, and it looks like they haven't practiced at all. It's like, man, which by the way, that speaks to the coach. It really does, because there are teams who have come out this season and have looked much better than that, and they don't have anywhere near the talent that, the Broncos have. Right. So it's, it's insane. It's insane that this goes on. I mean, they may have, they may be in deep trouble and they may have screwed themselves. Because I don't know if they can make the playoffs, and that division's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs are, I think, clearly the best team in the division, which we shouldn't be surprised by. Right. The Chargers, I mean, can they put it all together? Can they be consistent? I don't really see it yet. Yeah, and then Oakland or Las Vegas is bad, it seems like. And the Broncos are obviously, we've been talking about them. They've got some problems. So,
yeah, it's trouble. So, we'll monitor throughout the season, but I'm not moving off, the Broncos eventually being a good team. We'll see. Colin Cowherd is basically that, basically saying Nathaniel Hackett is not a head coach, and he thinks he's going to be fired, either before the season's over or at the end of the season. So, So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so let's move on to our favorite team. You know, they may not be our number one team on a day like today, but you know, they're the team that we root for, fortunately or unfortunately. And yeah, listen, first of all, let's start with this. I hate losing to the Jets. There's one team I hate losing to, it's the Jets.
Well, the thing is, remember, losing to the Bills, losing to the Patriots, it's not like I like it. But, you know, I mean, at this point, the Bills are like a Super Bowl contender. I don't, you know, and they did beat the Bills earlier this year, so that was fun. But it's not really a thing. But losing to the Jets, I mean, the Jets have just, what was that stat they were talking about during the game? They haven't been over 500 in 5 years or something?
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, you don't want to lose to a team like that.
And I think the Jets had lost like 8 division games in a row or something.
Well, they'd lost the last like 4 in a row to the Dolphins, I think. So, yeah, that's one of those things that, like, if you're a betting person, you know, if one team's beaten another team like a divisional team the last 4 times in a row, it's hard to keep that up. Even if the one team is clearly better than the team they keep beating.
Right.
So,
applause break.
Willie, come on, buddy, chill out. Yeah, so it's just losing to the Jets is just not. I really don't like it. But it's funny today. I'm just kind of like, you know what? The game just started off bad and just got worse. So, you know, I don't really have as much of a problem with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's, you know, I think it's, first of all, it's just kind of ironic, fun. I don't want to say funny, but it's definitely ironic that Teddy Bridgewater gets taken out from the game. He gets injured on the first play, gets taken out of the game. He's in the concussion protocol, and because of his motor instability that they saw, he's not allowed to go back in the game. So basically, because our starting quarterback can't stay healthy, no offense, but he can't stay healthy. Now our backup quarterback can't come back into the game. So it's just hysterical that something that's supposed to keep players safe would actually work against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just crazy. And from that point on, I mean, once Bridgewater goes out, and then, like you said, their left tackle, you know, went out pretty early. It's kind of like, all right, we're playing a 7th round pick who comes from he comes from Kansas State, where he's a better runner than he is a thrower. And, you know, it's kind of like, all right, you kind of throw that, you basically throw in the towel in the first, it's like a boxer going, all right, I'm going to fight the next 12 rounds, but this fight's over, you know, and that's basically what happened. They kind of threw it in. And, it's, you know, listen, it's hard to win in the NFL, and especially when you're on your third quarterback. It's really, really hard to win in the NFL. And, you know, listen, I can't blame Skylar Thompson. You know. Yeah,
no, I think he gets thrown in there. He's trying to do stuff. He's, you know, I feel like he threw about 3 passes that could have been picked off, and they didn't get picked off, but.
Yeah, it's I can't imagine that being in that situation, and it's not like I know he didn't take any practice or a whole lot of practice snaps this week. It's not like he was really prepared for what he was getting, you know, put into. That's not really the way you want to go into an NFL game. So yeah, it's tough, you know, and but this is, you know, and to go back to our you know, point before the season. Like, this is the thing we were worried about. If the Dolphins have injuries to specific guys, you know, Teron Armstead, Xavier Howard, their quarterback, like and
Jalen Waddle has been dealing with a groin issue, which
Tyreek Hill's
played, but
too.
That's not good, you know.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's hurt too. So it's you know, that they. Yeah, it could be trouble. Like, if the Dolphins are a team, they're very thin at certain spots, and if the wrong guys get injured, the season goes up in flames. So, I mean, I really think I wrote down that I really think they need to win 2 out of the next 3 games, or post Thanksgiving we're going to be, you know, not really wanting to turn the Dolphins game on because it's all going to be done.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, and I will say that it is. it is a good thing that the NFL and the NFLPA agreed to change the concussion protocol based on what happened to Tua. And I think it's interesting. So they pointed out that the people with the Dolphins and the independent neurotrauma consultant, they basically followed the protocol the way that it was written. But if there was sort of a loophole, or there was just sort of you could follow the policy, yet you could still be doing something where it's like, why aren't you taking this guy out of the game?
Yeah, I would call it a blind spot.
Yeah, there you go. And I think they've kind of eliminated that, which is good. I think hopefully that'll keep more people out of harm's way. Again, football's it's never going to be a completely safe sport. But, I think that's a step in the right direction. So, and unfortunately, just as human beings, unfortunately, what ends up happening is, in order for us to make a change, a lot of times something bad has to happen first. And then we go, oh, all right, let's fix this. So, I think that's a positive thing. Hopefully, Bridgewater can come back, or Tua can come back in the next game. I don't, again, he needs to do whatever's best for his long-term health. I mean, But, the Dolphins, who do they play next? They play the Vikings?
Yeah.
And then?
The Steelers, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see if they can win one of those games. I don't. It's kind of, I mean, they can't afford to be 3-4. I think that would be a really bad sign. But again, what are the Dolphins really? Their defense is ranked last in the league, or almost last. I mean, if you look at the rankings for the rushing defense and their passing defense is horrible. So, now granted, some of that's based off of
the Buffalo, but Buffalo racked up all kinds of yards in one game.
Yeah, but so did the Ravens, and now the Jets just did. Now, granted, the Dolphins have some injuries, but injuries happen, so. Maybe most. The funny thing is, most teams in the NFL, they're kind of about 500. A game or two below or above. That's basically what most of the teams in the NFL are, and the Dolphins are kind of right in that mix of teams.
Well, so. It's funny. There's on one side of the spectrum is right. We're going to keep everybody healthy, but then the other side of the spectrum is, do you want to watch third string quarterbacks for 2 months? It gets complicated. It's great, but I really don't want to watch, Daniel Jones play Baker Mayfield. I'm not sorry. I don't, I hate to be, I'm not trying to be elitist, but, I'm really not, some of this stuff is, I don't want to watch, Bailey Zappi play against Kenny Pickett, it's just.
I don't want to watch, I mean, like I said, we could be fans of the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, Marcus Mariota he's bad.
Yeah, it's tough. I was given the stat to you earlier that the Giants played the Bears, I think it was last week, and Justin Fields completed 11 passes and Daniel Jones completed 9 passes. So 20 completed passes between two teams in an NFL game. Yeah, that's not the league I want to watch.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes, and by the way, this whole thing, I was thinking about this earlier, the way this concussion thing goes could be a bit of an equalizer, because if one of the really great quarterbacks gets removed from a playoff game because of this, which we'll see if that actually happens. I'm not buying it.
Patrick, so according to Nick Wright, who was friends with Patrick Mahomes and has talked to him on numerous occasions, that game 2 years ago against the Browns in the divisional round of the playoffs, Mahomes said he didn't really have a concussion, but because he got up and wobbled around, they kept him out of the game. They wouldn't let him come back in. So, and they did keep him out of the game. I mean, Chad Henne had to play the rest of the game, so it's possible. We'll see. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. But yeah, so it's after a 3-0 start, it's looks like it's going to be a little rough sledding here for the Dolphins. So we'll see. But you made a good point. It's a good point about the defense. If the defense is going to be that bad, then it may not matter. Well, and
the other thing that people haven't really been saying, I mean, the last 2 years under Flores, when the defense was good, some of that was turnovers, and they're not getting a lot of pass pressure or pressure on the quarterback from their defensive line. So that's why they blitz all the time. And when you blitz all the time like that, things can go awry. And like you were pointing out during the game, they can't really cover anybody.
Well, yeah, if Xavier Howard and they don't get Byron Jones back, like that.
I thought Byron Jones played today.
It was Brandon Jones, the safety.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so they really for it to work, they need to have at least one or both of those corners. And Xavier Howard is like he's an All-Pro, so they really need him because he's the best player he's probably the best player on the team, if we're being quite honest. So they're really going to need that going forward, but. We'll see how it goes. They got Minnesota at home this week, so we'll see if one of the quarterbacks that we would like to play can actually play. We'll see how it goes because, if Skylar Thompson is our starting quarterback, we might as well, the season's over then. So,
because unlike what the CBS people said at halftime, Skylar Thompson was not playing really well in the first half against the Jets. Okay. I was watching it. I was like, what? No, he's not playing really well.
He was playing really well for a guy who's a seventh
round pick who didn't get to practice with the first team all week long and has never played in an NFL regular season game. Fine,
right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. We'll go through some of our NFL stories. So, do we need to mention that the Packers lost to the Giants this morning?
Well, I mean, it's quite obvious. I mean, that the Packers are struggling because Aaron Rodgers is doing ayahuasca in the offseason and he doesn't trust his wide receivers, and that's basically the source of all their problems.
Yeah, I think, they've
as
got
Colin Howard would say.
Right, they've got some issues with their offense, irregardless of the quarterback. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm saying it anyway. Irregardless, I think it's surprising to me that they are not able to run the ball better, to kind of use that as a foundation. I didn't see the whole game, but from what I did see, it looked like it was a real struggle, and Aaron Rodgers seems to resort to just chucking the ball down the field instead of trying to take what the defense gives them. That's a tough deal. I mean, they basically they probably should have lost to New England, and they lose to the Giants, and I don't believe that the Giants or the Patriots are good teams at all. So it's quite disturbing that this is if this is what the Packers are, this is a real problem. They're one of those. They really need to get a whole lot better, or the end of the season is going to be really rough for them too.
Right.
But, I think, listen, no offense to the New Yorkers, right? If any of them listen to this podcast, they're probably going to assault me in the street, but I don't think the Giants or the Jets are good. I know you both have winning records. I know you're 4-1 and 3-2. I get it, but I'm sorry.
Have they done anything that's really impressed you? I mean, really?
Saquon Barkley's awesome. I mean,
well, yeah, but we kind of knew that.
Right. No, I mean, they play. Listen, they're playing hard. I think that's great. Like they're playing their butts off. The new coach has got them, fired up. I think that's cool, and I think he's doing whatever he has to do to give them a chance to win with Daniel Jones. Like a big part of the coach's job is to manage the quarterback, and they're managing their quarterback really well. They're having him do the things that he can do. He's not going to complete a whole lot of passes. He's really good at running. So they're going to, kind of put that stuff in there for him, and, that's where they're at. The Jets, I think, I think the Jets' outlook is actually better than the Giants because they have some young players that are pretty good. I don't know if, I don't know if their offensive coordinator, their offensive play calling, and their quarterback are legit. But I do know they have some young talented players, which is good. But that game they won against Cleveland is a joke, and they beat a third string quarterback today. So I don't think it's time to raise a banner yet for either one of the New York teams, and we'll see. They're in my not going to make the playoffs list. So unless I'm way off, like we'll see how it goes. But for now, I'm still not buying it, even if some other people are. The Buffalo Bills are back to being the Buffalo Bills. This is what kind of I thought that was a possibility when they played Miami, that they would do that, and they took Pittsburgh behind the stadium and just beat them to death. I mean, it was that game was over in the second quarter. I think Josh Allen had 300 yards passing in the first half. Like it was a joke. One of the funny things though was when they're up 31-3, Buffalo's at the goal line about to go in to score, and somebody fumbles into the end zone and Pittsburgh recovers it, and Tony Romo says, "This is how the comebacks start, Jim."
This is how it starts, Jim.
This is how it starts. Very excited as Tony Romo is excited about everything. But I laughed out loud because I'm like, okay, they got a rookie quarterback in his first start. There's no way in hell, this is going to be a comeback. Are you kidding me? Like they can't. Pittsburgh's having trouble getting a first down. So I think it's funny, like the Pittsburgh fans were so excited when they put Kenny Pickett in. They blew a 10-point lead to the Jets, and then they got absolutely destroyed by Buffalo. So I don't understand what there is to be excited about. Like your team sucks. Like it doesn't really matter who you put in at quarterback. It makes me laugh when everybody's like, "Oh, we got to put in Kenny Pickett." Well, go ahead, you can put him in. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, Buffalo's back and Pittsburgh is not. Going back to our fourth down theme, Brandon Staley, our old pal, he tried to pull a fast one today. So here's the situation. Cleveland Browns are up. The Chargers are winning the game 30-28. They have the ball on their own 40-yard line. Okay. There's a minute 10 to go in the game. Okay. 4th down and 2. Okay. All they have to do is punt them deep. The Browns, they'd have to, they maybe could get a field goal. We'll see. But, the Browns, I'm pretty sure the Browns didn't have any timeouts left. But they didn't even bother punting. They just went for the 4th and 2, threw a pass, didn't get it. So Cleveland gets the ball in San Diego territory, okay, with a minute to go. Now, granted, they didn't do a very good job of moving the ball very far. So the kicker had to kick a 54-yard field goal, and he missed. So... But you could the guy who was I forget who broadcasted that game, but they were like, "What are you doing? This is just a really bad mistake." And they got away with it because the kicker missed a kick. And that kicker for the Browns have as a rookie, he's really good. He kicked like a 50, I think the same thing, 54-yard field goal in the first game to beat Carolina. So the kicker they have is legit. So the fact that they did that is it's absolutely asinine, and I don't. I think from, the people that I trust, people I listen to, they think he's a fraud. So we'll see about this Brandon Staley thing. I don't know. He got away with it today, ridiculously going for it on 4th down. That's absolute insanity, but he got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just going for it on your own side of the field. If you were at the other team's 30-yard line, 35-yard line, then it kind of for me it becomes it's like a push. It's like I'm almost on your side of going for it because you can kind of end the game there, and they still have a ways to go to get into field goal range. What do you think about though? Because we talked about this last week with the Ravens and the Bills game, and I was listening to Nick Wright talk about it the next day, and he was, of course, he did not have a problem with John Harbaugh going for it on that 4th down there at the end of the game, and he's like, well, the one thing you don't want is the one thing the Ravens or the one thing the Bills would have been scared of was the Ravens scoring a touchdown there, and I'm just like. Look, I don't want to rehash what we talked about last week, but it's just like, really? I mean, now granted, if Lamar Jackson hadn't thrown an interception there, maybe it works out because then you've pinned them really deep. But, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm just like, there's this huge disconnect between us talking about this, saying a lot of these things you shouldn't go for it on 4th down, and then some other people they have this other idea about it, and I'm just like, I don't really see where you're coming from. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, listen. Well, first of all, the funny part about the reality of that play is there's a guy who runs. They set it up, and the guy runs a corner route, and he's wide open, and Lamar doesn't throw the ball. He waits. There was a little bit of a rush, but not. There was enough time for him to step and get rid of the ball, and it would have been a touchdown. The guy was wide open, but he didn't throw it. He held the ball, backed up. So this is one thing. It's a problem for Lamar that he didn't step up and throw the ball. Yeah, he would have gotten hit, but it was like I don't know what he did on that play. Number one, number two, yeah, if you don't get it, they got to go down the field, right? But I don't understand not taking the 3 points there. Like you put the problem.
Yeah.
The problem with that is if you don't get it, Buffalo now has no pressure on them because the game's tied.
Yeah.
Buffalo literally, it's like, oh, they have to move down the field. Well, all they really have to do is, move far enough so they can punt it and end go into overtime. Like that's
right.
really all they have to do. And so the problem is you create a situation where Buffalo's got the ball, they're moving it down to your end of the field, and then they can just take it easy and kick a field goal. There's no pressure on them. But if you get the 3 points, then they have to do something.
Yeah, and I think Nick Wright was making the point that he's like, well, you don't want to be making decisions that just delay losing the game. And I'm like, that just seems like a cop out. I don't know. That just seems ridiculous to me. It's like so you can't ever kick a field goal or something? Like what? That's a false premise. You want to give yourself the best chance to win the game. Yeah.
And going for it, and the other thing is what I really like that I don't think people pay enough attention to is Peyton Manning said this on the Monday night game, one of their games. He was like, "You tried 3 times to make it, and you couldn't make it. So, do you have a better play than the 3 that you already tried? You already used your best play, right?" The game's on the line, so that means you've already had 3 chances at this. You've used your best play, so you're going to all of a sudden come up with a better play now that you didn't make it the first 3 times. So, no, if you couldn't make it the first 3 times, that's the thing I don't understand with coaches. Like, you couldn't make it the first 3 times. Why do you think you're going to make it now? They didn't score in the second half. They've had trouble on offense all day. So I think, forget the percentages. Take the data that you know from the game that you're in.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm, and I saw this in college football, right? Notre Dame's quarterback is not good. I mean, he's average at best. So it's like, don't go for, you can't just go for 4th and 1. Okay, you can't just go for it anytime you want because that's my first question. Who's your quarterback? What's your team like? Are you great at getting these?
Yeah.
Are you just going to quarterback sneak? Or is it, you're actually going to try to, on that play, they had to get into the end zone, which is more difficult than just getting a yard, right? So, yeah, I think when you take everything into account, your best chance to win the game was to kick a field goal. You're delaying the inevitability of losing. I mean, Buffalo's going to get the ball after that play anyway. You're not stopping Buffalo from getting the ball. They're getting it after you score a touchdown, you fail on 4th down, or you kick a field goal, you miss a field. Any way you slice it,
what I don't understand
Buffalo's getting the ball next.
Yeah, the idea that, if you kick a field goal, it doesn't put any pressure on them. Yeah, it does. You're now behind. You have to score to either tie the game or take the lead.
Right.
So it's like, I just, I'm not against analytics, but I look at some of this stuff and I go, guys, what are we doing with some of this stuff? And the thing with getting back to today, with the Chargers, it's like, I understand you got all this confidence in your offense, but I mean, at a certain point, kick the ball deep, make them have to do something. Don't make it easier for them to just get a field goal and win to be honest, it's almost one thing if you were up by 3 instead of 2. If you were up by 3, maybe I understand it a little more because then all they can do is tie with a field goal. But even then, if you're going to do it in your own side of the field, what if they score a touchdown?
Right.
Now they're going to win the game. It's just it's one of those things where there's a disconnect, and I don't, I understand the being aggressive thing, and I think in the past maybe some coaches weren't as aggressive as they should have been. But now we've almost pushed it all the way the other direction. And there needs to be a little more balance, I think, between the two.
Yeah. It's gone a little bit out of control. These games are decided by, inches. The just that 3 points, it makes such a huge difference in these games. So, I know I realize, it's not sexy. It's not the new thing. It's not, it's not the nerd way to go, but look, man, I'm trying to win. You're trying to win the game. That's all that anyone cares about. Like that's the part that's just completely missed to me. It's like, no one cares what the numbers say. They care whether you won. Your job will be dependent on whether you win.
Well, Mike Florio pointed out, he said, look, when you look at these analytics, these are numbers. And again, this is the same thing with baseball. Okay. These numbers are over the course of an entire season or over the course of many, many fourth down tries or whatever it is. Okay. So yes, you may be right over the long haul, but in a specific situation, it may be the wrong thing to go by those numbers. Because those numbers are, it's not, well, if you go for it here, you're 100% going to win the game. No, it's not. It's never like that.
And in the NFL, it's all a small sample size. Everything's a small sample size. The Rams were not the best team last year.
Right.
They managed to figure it out. They figured it out how to win enough games to win the postseason. You only have to be good in the NFL for like 3 months.
Yeah.
It's not like, so anyway, we'll move on from that. But, my point is that, Brandon Staley, we'll see. We'll monitor that situation, but I don't think,
right.
you want to talk about coaches that are over their head. I think he's one of them. So, yeah,
how about
Tom Brady.
Them Cowboys. No.
Yeah, I mean, listen, is it time for us to give the Cowboys some credit?
No. I think we're in the. I've seen this meme on like Facebook, and it's like the Cowboys season. It's like a cycle, right? There's preseason hype. And then the year starts out. Now, usually the year starts off badly, and then they play better. But now they're actually playing well now, right? And then people start to buy in, right? And then they start to struggle a little bit. They limp into the playoffs, but everybody's like, no, I think they'll figure it out. And then they lose in the playoffs. So now we're in the good part of the cycle, right? Where they're like, well, we think they're kind of good, And I'm not. Look, I'll give them credit. They've won with a backup quarterback. They're running the ball. Their defense is actually really good.
It is.
Okay, Micah Parsons. And who's the other guy? DeMarcus or...
Dexter Lawrence and... and Trayvon Diggs and...
Yeah, Micah Parsons. Yeah, those guys are good. Their defense is legit good.
By the way, that's an impressive coaching job right there. Where their defense was... at the beginning of last season to now that's incredible. Like
that's why Dan Quinn's been getting all this talk about him being a head coach.
Yeah,
again.
that is a hell of a job. So we have to give the Cowboys credit for that. The draft picks, the players that they've put on that side of the ball, home runs. On offense, CeeDee Lamb's really good. Like they've done a good job. We were worried. I thought their defense would be okay. I did not think it would be like this. So that we have to give the Cowboys credit for. Their offense, I think, it's a struggle. Their defense is obviously carrying most of the weight. I get it. And they also have a backup quarterback, so I can understand. Now, they've beaten Washington and the Giants, and they beat Cincinnati before Cincinnati was doing anything right. And, today the Rams just can't protect. So it's just it's really tough. In that
Rams
situation.
can't protect. They're not running the ball well, so it's just
So but hey, they're 4-1. I mean, I don't know how much I can complain. Like I thought there was no shot of them making the playoffs, but based on the way they've played and the way the NFC is, they have a shot.
Yeah,
they have a shot to make the playoffs, and they play the Eagles next week. So who the hell knows?
Right.
So I think I have to give the Cowboys credit. I'm not. They were on both the list, though. They were on the no Super Bowl and no playoffs list. So we'll see. I think I may be modifying that in some way because whatever the 7th seed is in the NFC is going to be some team that we're like,
Yeah, because especially I think we're starting to the NFL season's long, so like you said, the first month of the season you kind of throw out. We're starting to get a better feel for some of these teams. But again, even that could change later because maybe some teams make some adjustments or people get healthy and then they start playing better. So it's tough to really, I'm not really sold on the Bucs as a Super Bowl winning, as a team that could win the Super Bowl, just because their offense just does not seem like, it doesn't seem very efficient right now.
Right. So I think the Bucs and the Rams, that's a good topic. I think the Bucs and the Rams are kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think either one of them can figure it out and get it right?
I don't know, and I feel like the Bucs specifically, because Brady's on the team, they get a bump. I guess you'd call it the Brady bump, where people think they're better just because Brady's once, and
or getting roughing the passer penalties when you get tackled.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So. Yeah, I feel like for instance, Colin Cowherd keeps saying, well, their receivers weren't all healthy and they're getting the receivers back. What about their offensive line? I don't know what the situation is with the injuries they had on the offensive line. And they haven't been able to run the ball that well.
So I guess the difference that I see would be the Rams, they don't have receivers to come back. They have Cooper Kupp and Higbee at tight end and, Allen Robinson not really doing a whole lot. So their issues, and they have offensive line issues. Tampa is getting their weapons back, so they have the weapons, but their offensive line is the issue. So I guess that's the difference, right? Tampa maybe, and I think Tampa's defense is a little bit better than the Rams is.
Yeah, I think so. I think their defense is pretty good.
But this is I hate to keep mentioning this, but this is just the way it is in the NFL now. Somebody's going to get hot from Thanksgiving on and win the Super Bowl. That's how this is going to go.
Somebody's going to get hot. Somebody who probably doesn't have a bunch of injuries.
Right. So I don't like trying to make predictions on the playoffs or looking at any of that right now. I really hate it because it's all nonsense. The NFL's a joke every week. It's a slog. It's a meat grinder, whatever you want to call it. You don't know. It's a mess every Sunday. It's really entertaining. Okay. Yeah. But it doesn't last for more than 1 week. It's like, okay, great. After the Dolphins beat Buffalo, we thought this was going to be great. Look at us now.
3-2, and they're playing they could be 3-3 next week.
Now we're now we're hoping for Skylar Thompson to bring us out to the promised land. It's like, the NFL is just, it's a shit show. It's just the way it is. But I'm going to believe in the organizations I know that do their job and the good quarterbacks. That's who I'm going to believe in. So I'm not counting out the Rams. I'm not counting out Tampa. I'm not counting out Green Bay, even though I think Green Bay they have a lot of issues that I don't think necessarily can be solved.
Who would you say are the top five, the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now? Not based on anything else, just the way they're playing right now.
Okay, so right now, I think it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson,
Jalen Hurts.
Probably Brady. Man, I'd want to say Joe Burrow, or Justin Herbert, but they,
we'll see.
We'll see how Burrow.
Even Lamar Jackson, he's got some. Obviously, there were some issues in the Bills game, but he's been doing a lot of stuff. It's tough. I look around and I'm just like, that's why I'm thinking, based on the way Jalen Hurts is playing, he's pretty. He's pretty good. Stafford is struggling. Some of it's maybe not his fault, but he's not playing as well as he was last year. And then you just look around and it's like, who else am I going to put there? Justin Herbert's he's been good. He had an injury. He's got an injury that he's kind of dealing with. But
your point is well made, though. There's a handful of them, and then every week you're watching, Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz.
That's my overriding point. Yeah, we can quibble about who the top 5, 6, 7 guys are, but beyond that, it's kind of like Kirk Cousins. He's decent, but it's just kind of like, Dak Prescott. We'll see how he is when he comes back. He wasn't that good in the first game. Tannehill's been fine. Tannehill's been like Tannehill again the last 3 games. They're 3-2 now. So,
right.
which that's kind of
what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
The rest of it's just kind of, I'm Geno Smith, and Geno Smith scored some points. I'll give him credit for that, but it's like,
Well, do you buy? I mean, I think I wrote down in my notes. The question is: San Francisco the best team in the NFC? Do you buy Philadelphia, or how do you feel about Philadelphia? What do you think? As far as
I don't
this
know.
minute?
I need to see more. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Philly is a good team, but I think some of this is going to start to be exposed as the season goes along, and we'll see where they're at in November. I don't know that you can continue listen. The one thing that I know is going to continue to work is their offensive and defensive lines are really good. So they're going to be good in the trenches, which that's half the battle in the NFL. Like they're going to be solid every game. They're going to be there every game, But when we're talking about winning playoff games, that's where I question it. To me, if I'm a Philly fan, I'm like, we have to get the number 1 seed, and then we've got at least a chance.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I think for most, and the funny thing is we quibble about this, but really, unless you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback, the only way you're winning the Super Bowl is everything's got to really just line up for you in one specific year. In terms of health, in terms of who you have to play in the playoffs, whether you're home or away or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the case for most teams.
Right? Didn't the year the Eagles won it with Nick Foles? Didn't they play like Atlanta and then Minnesota with Case Keenum in the playoffs? Wasn't that who they played? I know they played Minnesota in the NFC Championship game because remember the Vikings won that crazy game against New Orleans.
Yeah, maybe they played Atlanta. I can't remember.
Right. Then they played Matt Ryan. So, it's like they really, they kind of caught it. And then look at the year with the Ravens where Flacco won it. Like they were kind of right in the middle, whatever. They were kind of a mediocre team, and then all of a sudden, they figured out they got I think Bryant McKinney to play left tackle, and they kind of locked in their offensive line, and then it was solid the rest of the way, and then they took off. So you're right. It's become, so maybe this concussion stuff, maybe it's a bit of an equalizer.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Now, I will say this, there's a few teams and a few quarterbacks where I just kind of go, I'm going to pick them over, most other teams, like the Bills right now or the Chiefs. Or
you're going with the stability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just think it's kind of, and then the Ravens in the playoffs, well, I guess it depends if they're playing at home and how Lamar's playing and all that stuff. But even them, I kind of throw them in there. It's like everything's got to kind of break their way. It could happen, But it's
everybody's
just, you feel like if you have Mahomes or you have Josh Allen, you're going to get multiple shots at it.
Right. Everybody's got flaws. It's just whose flaws are you more comfortable with? Right. It's like where are you at with it? But anyway, so there's an NFL topic that I wanted to address that I thought was kind of interesting. So on Colin Cowherd's show, he had Albert Breer on, and they were talking about trying to upgrade a quarterback. So they were citing like San Francisco and Kansas City, when they had Alex Smith and they got Mahomes, and then teams that have they've basically gotten a solid quarterback, and then they wait for the opportunity, and then they upgrade, which is kind of like in the NBA when you just collect assets and you keep getting good players, young players on your team, so that when the time comes to make a trade for the superstar, you can do it. So they were making the argument that this is like you're much better off, trying to be solid at quarterback, and then waiting for the opportunity to upgrade, and taking advantage of it when it comes along. And listen, so I agree. I get what they're saying, right? Like you don't want to just be bad and then try to see if you can get one in the draft and then kind of hope and you want your team to be good while you're trying to find that guy. And I get what they're saying. It makes sense. But the problem is they're talking about teams that are smart and well run and do things the right way. The Chiefs, the 49ers, the Vikings, teams that are relatively right, that, their organization is well run. They draft well. They have a good foundation, right? But what about half the league that doesn't have that? right? As Dolphin fans, we don't have that. We don't have a solid organization where it's like, oh, we'll just get, a Matt Ryan or a Kirk Cousins or a Phillip Rivers or a Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll just get one of those, and then we'll upgrade when the time is right. Like Kansas City, we'll make the playoffs with Alex Smith, and then we'll trade up and get Mahomes. And it's like, yeah, that's great. That works for them, sure, right? But my argument is, yeah, we're the Dolphins. Like, we're not well run. Our owner's, suspended right now because he can't stop doing dumb shit. Okay? So the only chance the Dolphins have is to draft a quarterback because it's not likely. Well, and listen, Miami we actually have a chance at getting some of these quarterbacks who might want to get away from their team because they want to come to Miami. Most places don't have that.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to go to Jacksonville, or Cleveland, So it's like the only chance the Dolphins have is we've got to hit on a quarterback. That's it, because that's the only thing that's going to sustain us, because we're not going to be great at everything else. Right. So it's like it's a great argument for people that have already made it. They've already figured out they already have a great life, and it's like, just work harder, you'll get there. And it's like, I wish it were that easy.
Yeah, well, and I think what gets lost is, and this doesn't just apply to football. This applies to a lot of other things. What gets lost is the confluence of events that often has to happen to have like a great team or a great organization in football, or just a business in the business world, right? So, I mean, the Patriots, like, okay, they hired Bill Belichick. They have a really bad first year. They start off 1-2 the next year. They have an injury, and then this 6th-round pick, who they probably shouldn't even have drafted because they had Drew Bledsoe, turns into the greatest quarterback of all time.
Right.
Okay? Who also decides he doesn't need to get paid the maximum amount of money. He takes less money to allow them to keep more players. Okay? So you have that. Kansas City, Andy Reid was the coach of the Eagles. They were really successful. They had a bad year or a bad couple years, and so then they fire him so he's available. So then you get him, and then you have Alex Smith there, so you're winning, and then you're able to draft Mahomes because other teams didn't draft him, and then it turns into what it turns into. Josh Allen, it took him a few years to develop into the quarterback that he is now. And fortunately they were able to, they got him, and then they had the right Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator, and then they were able to, keep getting other players. They trade for Stephon Diggs, and now they're kind of set now for the next 10 years,
Right.
But it's not like these things just, that's one of the most annoying things for regular people like us when we listen to really successful people talk about some of this stuff, is they just go, well, they were just really smart and they just worked really hard. Yeah, but, some things went your way, and then they're like, well, you got to be smart to capitalize on them. Well, sure, but, things did go your way. There's other organizations where things don't go your way. And then people go ahead.
Well, and it comes from the top, right? It's the ownership on down to everything else. So when you have when you're flawed at the top, the only way to overcome it is to just manage to hire a great coach, manage to get a great quarterback. Like, you're not going to overcome it with the Dolphins are not going to overcome things with their organizational stability.
Yeah.
They have to do it with, the key players that make up for it. And they don't have that. So it's like, and listen, I know nobody likes tanking, and I don't think tanking will really it's not really going to have a good place in the NFL just because it's hard to do. But I know nobody wants to hear it. It works. I hate to say it. It works. I apologize for everyone who's mad that that's the case, but that's the case. You have to get a high enough draft pick to get a great quarterback. It's very hard. The Rams just managed to stumble into Stafford. Like, they got lucky that their owner was like, all right, let's do it. Was willing to take a swing at it. Everybody's not going to do that. So it's I get what they're saying, and yes, it makes sense. It's better for the fans if you try to win. You try to do the best you can until you can find that guy. Just because there's so few of them, I understand that.
but it's more complicated than that. That's my overriding point. It's more complicated than that, and people don't want to talk about it because it's almost like I'm saying, well, you're just saying that they're lucky. Well, in part, yes, they are. Like, I mean, and by the way, you see this throughout sports. I mean, in the NBA is a perfect example of this because in the NBA, like, you know, in the draft, there's only a few really, really great players, and you got to be bad in the right year and then draft them, you know. Or, I mean, like, you got to get, and this happens in the NFL too, but like a classic example of this is the Miami Heat drafting Dwayne Wade. The Detroit Pistons, I don't know why, decided to draft that guy Darko Milicic, who sucked, and then the Miami Heat get Dwayne Wade, and the rest is history. So,
yeah, you know, yeah. Well, that's funny you brought that up because now there's this NBA prospect from France. His name is Victor Wembanyama. I believe that's how you say it. And it's insane. Teams are going to be. You watch what happens this NBA season after the All-Star break. Teams are just going to be falling all over themselves to lose as many games as they can. It's going to be a freak show. Just wait. Yeah. The last 2 months of the NBA season are going to be a joke. There will be scheduled wins for everybody. It will be absolutely insane. Okay, because this guy, he's 7'4". He's like a combination of Giannis, Kevin Durant, and Rudy Gobert. Okay,
yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Okay, and there's 2 or 3 other players in this draft that are supposed to be really good too. But you know, this is just going to be tank job, you know, of all time. So. Yeah. Anyway, I understand in football it's much harder to do that. Although, like this is the part that bothers me about the Dolphins owner. Yeah, by the way, he had the right idea. That was the right idea. Like let's lose games and let's get the number 1 pick so we can get Joe Burrow. That's the right thing to do. You know, but the problem with that logic is he hired the wrong coach if that's what you're going to do. You know, so it's like you can't even figure out the plan in order to, you know, manipulate the system correctly because you're so stupid. Anyway, all right. Yeah. So that was all I had for NFL topics. And so yeah, but let's go through some college football.
Okay.
So yeah, it was an interesting day yesterday in college football. You know, Alabama was I don't think they're number 1 now, but they had a big fat sloppy mess of a game against Texas A&M. So I don't know if it came down to the last play. A&M with 3 seconds to go on like the 1 or 2 yard line trying to score. They didn't score. They ended up losing 24-20. It was it was an amazing finish, but man, what a crappy played game. But, you know, it's amazing to me, like I've been saying this before, that, you know, Texas A&M is one of those teams. They have talent. They just can't figure anything out. You know, they're all over the place. Their offense is really bad. You know, so my overall take on that is, you know, Alabama played with their backup quarterback. They turned it over 4 times. They missed 2 field goals. Right. You know, they did everything wrong that you could do to try to lose a game. But, you know, if Texas A&M had any offense, if they had any rhythm or flow or anything consistently on offense, they would have won that game easily. You know, right. I give Texas A&M a lot of credit. They played hard. The quarterback was getting the crap beat out of him. He kept coming back. He kept trying to make plays. You know, it was a rough game the whole time. They had such a hard time, but it shows how much talent that they have, that they managed to, you know, Texas A&M almost won that game. You know, it's like they're definitely, you know, Alabama is a much better team, but Texas A&M figured out how to hang in there. So, you know, it's one of those things like, I'm not going to make sweeping generalizations, but if you look at Alabama's last, you know, 6-7 games, well, going to last season, so I'd say last 8-9 games, something like that. A lot of them, they haven't played well. They didn't play well last year against LSU, against Auburn. They beat the crap out of Georgia the first time they played them, but they didn't play great the second time they played them. You know, they didn't play well against Texas A&M. They didn't play well against Texas. Like, they've had a handful of games now where it's like, man, this is rough. And, you know, so I've kind of caught on to what Alabama is, and I think Alabama's a good team with a great quarterback. And so they're able to make up for all of these things that happen because Bryce Young is special. You know, he's gotten them out of some tough situations. That Auburn game last year, they should have lost. Like, they never get to overtime if they don't have Bryce Young playing quarterback. He's fantastic. You know, so I think this is going to be a really interesting year for college football because I don't think, like, you're looking at the top three teams, right? Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, in whatever order you want to put them in, and none of them are great. And I don't think any of them are going to all of a sudden be great. I think they're very good, but I don't think they're going to all of a sudden be great. So, you know, we'll see how it goes, but this was this was a really interesting game. Texas A&M went on the road, hung in there with them for 4 quarters, almost pulled it off. So we'll see going forward what Alabama is, but any thoughts from you on that?
I mean, that's I would agree with that. You know, and that's why you need it. That's why it's great to have a great quarterback because, you know, you can make up for, you know, not playing well in the other with, you know, the rest of the team not playing as well as you need to play. So it'll be interesting to see as you get later on in the season if somebody can pick off Alabama. But you still feel like it's going to be Bama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. But it does make you wonder, like if Bama loses that game, like they're kind of out. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Georgia struggled with Missouri last week, and
right.
So you can see it's this year is a little more parity than we had before. This year is there's a handful of teams that I think.
Yeah, Clemson seems to be back to being pretty good. So.
Yeah, there's a handful of teams that I think have a shot. So some other college football thoughts for me. Listen, I still have no idea if Michigan is good or how good they are. You know, they struggled for 3 quarters with Indiana. They were tied 10-10, and you know, then they managed to score, you know, several touchdowns and win, you know, by 21. But it concerns me that Michigan has trouble scoring against Iowa and Indiana. That's a little bothersome. And, you know, I thought from the start of the season that, you know, Ohio State would get Michigan back this year. I just think, you know, offensively, Ohio State's just at a completely different level than Michigan is. And so I think, and plus, you know, Michigan had to replace both coordinators, you know, but they're trying to get J.J. McCarthy to, you know, to be really good eventually. He's not, you know, he's nowhere near it yet. He misses, you know, he misses too many throws, and, you know, their offense, like, yeah, they're running the ball, but it's going to be a different game when they play Ohio State. So I'm not convinced, I don't know that Michigan's for real. They have to play Penn State next week. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that was a very uninspiring, unimpressive performance against Indiana.
Yeah.
So the Red River shootout, or the Red River rivalry, or as we call it this year, the Red River massacre. That was ugly. You know, Texas went in there and we talked about Oklahoma last week, but man, Oklahoma's defense is terrible. I mean, that's unbelievable. They're like 55 points to TCU, 49 points to Texas. Like, it's going to be a rough go for Oklahoma, but I will say, you know, from what I saw, I mean, Texas is a different team with Quinn Ewers starting at quarterback. Like, when they have him in, you know, they've got a real team. Like, I know they lost to Texas Tech, you know, with him out, but with if he's, you know, if he plays the rest of the season, like, they got a real shot to win that conference. Like, it's really up for grabs. You know, if they play like that. Now, granted, you know, I don't imagine they're going to be beating everybody 49-0, but I was impressed. And, you know, Oklahoma's got a lot of work to do, obviously.
Right.
So, you know, we'll see.
Lincoln Riley and,
Yeah. I don't know what I don't know. Now, listen, Oklahoma's quarterback was out, but that's not an excuse for getting beat by that much. But, you know, I do understand where they're coming from. The other thing I wanted to mention was that the Pac-12 and the Big 12, I'll tell you what, pretty good conferences. Like from top to bottom, like they have 3 or 4 teams in each conference that are pretty good. I think that as far as the Pac-12 is concerned, UCLA and USC are both legit. They're both undefeated. So I think when they play each other, that's going to be a hell of a game. Right. I think that the Big 12 is ultra competitive. You talk about Oklahoma State, Texas, Baylor, TCU. Kansas was undefeated until yesterday. So right. I think this is it's really cool that those conferences are as competitive as they are, because we haven't really had that recently. Maybe, and we'll see if one of those teams from either conference can make the playoff. I'm not convinced of that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The schedule is going to get a little bit more difficult, but yeah, I'm really. It's going to be really interesting, because Alabama's got tough teams coming up. They got to play Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU. So it's not going to be easy. Alabama's got to play. So next week they play Tennessee on the road. Penn State plays Michigan. Oklahoma State plays TCU, and USC plays Utah. So it's going to be a fascinating slate of games. I still think, if you're asking me, I still think, Alabama and Georgia, at least one of them will definitely be in. It could be 2 of them. Whoever wins the Big Ten will probably be in. And then, if I'm not sure at this point anybody's going to beat Clemson from the ACC. So I think it's probably the SEC champion, the Big Ten champion, Clemson, and then we'll see what happens with that 4th spot. If there's an undefeated Big 12 or Pac-12 team, maybe.
Right.
But, yeah. And, as a side note, Notre Dame is really boring. Notre Dame's offense is like watching grass grow. Like it's just, oh my God. So, I hope that they can get better as the season goes along, because it's painful to watch.
Yeah.
You watch the NFL on Sunday and then you try to watch Notre Dame play, and it's like, oh man, that's a little lower level there. But anyway, yeah, that's my that's my college football news for this week. But before we go, I wanted to talk about the Draymond Green situation. I will say, I want to start out with this. Number one, the NBA is the best at drama and conspiracy theories. There was no other sport that does this as well. Okay. The NFL, yes, the NFL has some drama. I get that. But the NBA is, it's fascinating when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, the video surfaced from TMZ.com of Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in practice. If you guys haven't seen it, pull it up on the internet. It's quite disturbing. We heard for the story, 2 or 3 days before that was he struck a teammate in practice and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, all right, whatever. What is it? What does that mean? And then you see the video and you're like, oh, okay. He just hauls off, and he punches him full force in the face, like knocks him down. Yeah. Like it was kind of rough. So, a couple things. Number one, listen, Draymond got some anger issues. I think that's a polite way of saying it, and listen, I'm proud of Draymond for not going on his podcast and saying a bunch of, awful stuff and making this situation worse. I appreciate the fact that he apologized and tried not to make it a bigger story than it is. But here on this podcast, that's what we do. So let's make this a bigger story than it is. Look, I think there are a couple things that I thought were funny about the situation. Number one is the take that I'm sure we're going to hear tomorrow. Are you allowed to punch someone at your job? Is this what your workplace is like? Are you allowed to? Which is a terrible take, but it just kills me. It makes me die laughing. Number one. And, number two, it's like, hey, listen, we got to get in on this new media because you can punch people. So, can I get in on this? So, that's just like, it kind of makes me laugh. But there is some serious stuff involved, right? Draymond, after this season, has to decide on his player option. Jordan Poole's trying to get a new contract, so it's going to be really interesting. Chris Haynes put out a tweet that said, that Jordan Poole's attitude has been a problem, and everyone since refuted that, right? Steph Curry came out and said something about it. Steve Kerr said something about it. Andre Iguodala said something about it. So we'll see. I don't know if this really affects them basketball wise, but it's kind of all the Draymond Green haters got extra ammunition, and the thing is, the Draymond Green haters have basically had to be quiet since they won the championship. Everybody was talking all kinds of junk, and then they won, and so they have to be quiet. So now everybody's back on. Everybody who doesn't like Draymond is back on.
Yeah,
so I'll give you the floor.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising. Draymond Green is like basically. He's an agitator who's always either right at the line or over the line, like all the time. And I think that's I guess you kind of need that on some level to be a tough team and to be able to go far in the playoffs. So, I'm not surprised by it at all. I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories because I have no idea. I don't know what, I don't know what his attitude is like. And
that's the point, Clark. None of us know.
Yeah, is this going to affect the team down the road? I mean, look, the thing with Durant, the Warriors would have won the championship that year if Durant didn't get hurt. So people saying that was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal, but I mean, if you're good enough, I don't think it matters. So,
right.
We'll see how it goes. Now, is there going to be issues because Jordan Poole's looking to get a new contract and maybe the Warriors can't afford to pay him, so he may want to go somewhere else, but, he's going to want to get a bunch of shots. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and, the decision, like, what are they going to do about Draymond? Like, they can't just, it's like how much can they continue to pay, right? They've got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond. They're all getting big new contracts. Jordan Poole's going to have to get one. Like, how are they going to handle this financial issue they're going to have? It's kind of unprecedented. Like, I don't know how they work all this out. Draymond's not the same player he was 3-4 years ago. So it's an interesting dilemma that they're going to have to deal with. And I can see where it would create a little bit of, I'll say, tension, as a buzzword, because I'm sure it's more significant than that. But what do you think about the idea that, hey, maybe the Warriors leak this because, they want to make Draymond look bad so they don't have to pay him?
I mean, I think a lot of that leak stuff gets overblown, as if there's always somebody for every team who's just sort of sitting behind the scenes like the Wizard of Oz or something and is just deciding every little bit of information that's going to be put out. It's like, come on.
Well, and then the Warriors are mad that the video leaked. It's like I mean, I get why they're upset, but I mean, isn't that part of the gig? Like, I hate to be ridiculous here, but TMZ gives people lots of money for stuff.
There's cameras everywhere. Everybody's walking around with a camera now. So it's hard to really keep things totally secret,
Right. None of this other stuff leaked, but that leaked. It's like, well, and Draymond's like mad that, none of the, it never leaks when I'm coaching guys up or when we're doing this or doing that. It's like, yeah, of course not, because nobody gives a shit about that.
Because you didn't punch anybody.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, why don't you try not punching people? How about that, Draymond?
Yeah, punch people, we're probably not a story. We don't care. But,
Right, right, there's what, right, but.
He just walks up there and just,
right, cold cocks him. There's nobody that should be blamed for this except you, Draymond. I don't give a shit whether you're new media, old media, whatever. This is you. This is on you. This is your fault. You did this. I don't give a rat's ass what Jordan Poole said to you, And I also don't like people going, the old school people going, yeah, well, Jordan punched teammates, so whatever, blah, blah, blah. No, man. It's 2022. Like, that shit, no. You can't.
Yeah, no.
Sorry. Like, yes, do we get in fights with each other? Absolutely. When my wife and I get into a fight, do I slap her around? No.
No, that's a crime. That's called
no, exactly. So, yes, I understand the job that they work in is different. I get it. Okay? I understand that. But at the same time, dude, like, there's consequences, man. There's consequences in life. And this idea that, you have to be at this level all the time and be ready to fight at a drop of a hat. I'm sorry, dude. You gotta learn how to control it.
I mean, I understand you got to be kind of physical and you got to be, tough and whatever. But yeah, that's obviously crossing the line. But Draymond, he kind of, that's kind of what he does. He kind of crosses the line every now and then, and it's like, all right, dude, slow down. And it's, so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought the Warriors were, I thought maybe they were a contender last year, and I think they're a contender this year, obviously. But then beyond that, we'll see,
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's going to be an exciting season. I think we probably have to do our NBA preview next weekend. So I think the season starts on the 18th. So but I'm really, that being said, as a precursor to basketball season, I'm super excited. Like, I think this season is going to be a whole lot of fun. I think there's going to be a whole lot of teams involved that have a chance. I think it's going to be really fascinating. We've already got all kinds of drama now with what happened with the Celtics and now what's happening with the Warriors, and what's always happening with the Lakers, that, it's going to be quite an interesting season.
Yeah.
So, all right, before we get out of here, any recommendations, on what to watch these days?
I'm trying to think if there was anything I watched recently. I mean, no, I mean, I finished watching that Lakers documentary on Hulu, and it was okay. There was some interesting stuff, but some of it was just kind of beyond that, I don't know.
But the Nolan Ryan documentary on Netflix, that was really good.
That's really good.
I'd highly recommend that. Very well done.
Yeah. And I don't know. There's not much else. I feel like there's something. I feel like there was some sports thing I watched recently that was good. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, I don't know.
Concussion?
No. The Will Smith thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. That was kind of, tell the truth, What did you think of the, here's a pop culture thing. So they made a cartoon movie of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, really?
And Chris Pratt is doing the voice of Mario, but he's just doing his voice. He's not doing the, Mario Italian, whatever.
Yeah. The
caricature that you would have heard in like Super Mario 64, I'm a Luigi, I'm a Mario,
Yeah, it should be. By the way, that should be so offensive, but it's not. Somehow we've made that not offensive. I don't know how.
Well, and the thing is, like, it's so ridiculous that I'm just like, is it really offensive? It's like when some people got pissed off when there was the Chihuahua, Yo quiero Taco Bell, and it's like. They're like, well, you're saying all Mexicans are like that. It's like, well, I don't necessarily. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if we're really like, really. I don't know.
Yeah, it's also a dog, so it's different. Mario's a different.
Well, Mario's a fictional character. He's a cartoon. It's
True.
Just kind of like, he's a plumber. Like.
True. Yeah.
All those Italian plumbers that we know about.
All right. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope we provided some entertainment for you. Everybody make sure to like, subscribe, give us some thumbs up, give us some comments, whatever you got going on. And all right, we'll see everybody next week.